Kia ora, Helen Brahms here coming to you live from Mesa in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling start to your winning Wednesday. Yes, it is that time of the week where we get to celebrate you, celebrate your victories, be they through from the past week, from today. So please let us know what you're winning, what thing. Please let us know what we're celebrating today. What are your wins for the week? What are your wins for today? Even what are your wins for the year? Because we're coming up on the end of the year. So now's a good time to look at what were our biggest wins in 2020. And some people are going to turn around and go, oh, but we were stuck with COVID. We didn't have any wins because this year was such a crap shit and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, cut that crap out. We're celebrating wins. We're looking at what celebrations have we got through the year. Maybe it was something like, you had your best year ever. Believe me, there are people out there who are celebrating the fact that 2020 was their best year ever. Some people had to make a lot of changes this year because of the circumstances. What were those wins that you had because of the changes you had to make? So let us know, what are your wins for today and the week? And I'm going to stick in there the year as well. And next week we'll talk about it as well, because next week will be the last Wednesday of the year of 2020. So start thinking about what are your wins for the year. So today we're just looking at what are your wins for the week, what are your wins for today, and then next week we'll talk about your wins for the month and the wins for the year for 2020. So we're going to start wrapping up the year and getting it completed so that we are ready for the newness and the incredible opportunities that are going to come our way in 2021. So I am on late today. I am so far behind myself. I don't know where I am. I was in the process of getting up this morning, as if he was still curled up in bed asleep, and I was in the process of getting up, and I thought, oh, let me check to see what the weather is going to be. I get on my phone, and 30 minutes later, I get off my phone and realize I didn't even check the weather. I was like, oh, I cannot believe that I did that. And so it put me behind. So I had my shower, I got dressed. Then I realized we didn't have time for our walk. I had my training to get on. Training ran for an hour today instead of its usual 30 minutes. So here I am doing this live, and Zeffie's still in bed. Well, she did get up for a little bit. She came out. She sat here next to me and had breakfast, because I did have time to squeeze breakfast in between when I got dressed and when I went onto the training call this morning. So I did have time to squeeze breakfast, and then so she sat here and got her 4 Cheerios. Actually, she got 5 this morning, but who's counting? And and then she just jumped down and went up to the window for a little bit, and then went back to bed. And she's still in there right now. So I'm waiting to see if she notices that I'm about to move and put my shoes on so we can go for a WA. Okay. But last night we got to watch Polar Express. Love that movie. That is such a great, great movie. Even as an adult, it is an awesome movie. I know it's a kids movie, but there's some kids movies that are great no matter that it doesn't matter what age you are when you watch them. They are still great movies. And Polar Express is one of those movies that touches the heart of an adult just as much as it touches the heart of a kid. And I think one thing I find, even going back and watching like the Disney animated movies, going back and watching, like Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, all of those old classics, Cinderella, The Jungle Book, watching those classic Disney movies as an you get to see them as a child. Well, some of those I didn't get to see as a child. Some I got to see as a teenager. Some I got to see early adulthood. But to go back a few years later and watch them again, you get a completely different perspective on, because you have a life of experience now. Whereas as a young innocent child, it is very different perspective to when you are a seasoned adult, even with the appealing to the child within you. And one of the ones that I love is The Kid with Bruce Willis, who ends up meeting his 8-year-old self. His 8-year-old self comes back to remind him that what it's like to be a child again, to keep that childlike quality within your life. And I love that movie, because I often think, if my 8-year-old self came to me today, what would my 8-year-old self remind me of from my childhood, and what advice would I give my 8-year-old self? So there's 2 ways you can look at that movie, The Kid. What advice can you as an adult give yourself as an 8-year-old, and what can the 8-year-old remind you about your childhood and how to be childlike and how to have that inquisitive nature? I don't think I've ever lost my inquisitive nature. I mean, I research genealogy. I love finding things out. I see these these movies that are based on actual events. So I'm sort of like, okay. And if you saw my quote yesterday by Mark Twain, his quote is, what is it? something about, oh, what's the quote? It's about how life is stranger than fiction, and that's why. Oh, I totally forgot it. Mine's gone completely blank. It's one of my favorite quotes too. It's something about how life is stranger than fiction, and that's why fiction needs to make sense. That's what it was. Life is stranger than fiction. Yeah, something about the life is stranger than fiction, but fiction needs to make sense, which is why you get all these movies that are based on actual events are fictionalized in a way, because if you saw the actual events or heard the actual story, you go, no, that didn't happen. No, no way. So they have to fictionalize some things because fiction makes sense, life does not. Um, so if you look at it that way too. So yes, I've been able to. So I've always had that inquisitive nature, always, and I'm always like investigating things. I still remember going to one of my uncle's wedding, and they had these little white round things on the floorboards and stuff. And I remember my cousin and I getting together, and they were bugs. They were listening devices, and we are playing this whole spy game throughout the whole wedding reception in place. But nobody knew that we were playing this game because we were spies. We were undercover. Um, you know, this is some of the stuff we used to get up to as kids. So what would your 8-year-old self remind your whatever age you are now about being a child, and what advice where you are now can you give to that 8-year-old child? So think about that today. I have no idea what it has to do with Winning Wednesday. It just popped into my head. Oh, Polar Express. There we go. I was watching Polar Express last night. Love that movie, and the innocence of a child. When where and when do we lose that innocence? Is there a way that we can get it back? And this is one thing I love about being with my grandkids, and I have totally missed this year a bit not being near them with all the traveling and all the COVID thing and everything happening. But just, I love spending time, especially when Damak and I used to do our trips to the zoo and things, or to the zoo or to the museums and things that we used to go to, and just experiencing it through his eyes. And I remember him as a 2-year-old. We went to the transport museum in San Diego, there, the car museum, and they had this first responder exhibit on at the time, and there was this life-size mannequin of a California highway patrolman. And here's my 2-year-old grandson standing there in front of this mannequin, looking up at this guy, and it was about a 6 foot tall one. It was way taller than me. It wasn't as tall as Brad, but it was tall. Um, about the 6 foot mannequin. And he's standing there, he's looking right up, and he goes, "Hi, hi." And this mannequin just stands there staring up, and there's this little 2-year-old looking up at this mannequin just saying hi, and he couldn't understand why this guy was not talking back to him. So I had to pick him up so he could see this guy's face, and the look on his face was sort of like, what? And he, being two at the time, he couldn't communicate the puzzle, but the puzzlement was on his face as to why it looks like a real person, but it's not a real person. And then as we're walking around, there was a Humvee that they had done up as a medivac vehicle, and it had stretchers in the back. And so he's like busy running around the museum and stuff. And so I take him, and he's trying to see in the back of the Humvee. The moment I lifted him up, he went completely sober. He went completely serious. He went from being this little great. He picked up that what he was looking at was a serious situation. And I thought, isn't that interesting? A 2-year-old who's busy running around with all the wonders. There's motorcycles there. He can get underneath the ropes and touch the exhibit. And I'm sort of like, very energetic 2-year-old in a car museum. It was hilarious. But the moment I picked him up so he could see inside this Humvee, he went completely serious. And the fact that he was able to pick up on that, that was an incredible experience to be able to watch. But to see, and his eyes were moving all around the Humvee, like taking in all the details and everything. But he knew that this was a serious vehicle and this was a serious situation. All the other vehicles, like the motorcycles, they're fun. They've got all this. I don't know. It must have been the dark interior of the Humvee that made him think it was serious. And then there's all the shiny chrome that was on all the motorcycles and the shiny paintwork, and then there was this little, oh, I don't even remember. I think it was like a little Fiat, and just one of those little tiny ones, and it was all painted up by some well-known artist and something. And he was fascinated with all the bright colors on there, and they were all primary colors, so that they attract kids' attention. So he was very interested in the vehicles and stuff, but he wanted to keep putting his hands on. And he was small enough that he could walk underneath the barriers, or he just had to duck a little bit and he could get under. Whereas I had to reach over, pick him up, and pull him back over. Um, But being able to go through museums and stuff like that, and we went through the air museum that they have there in San Diego as well, and I just remember him standing there in the atrium, and they had a helicopter up there, and the propeller was going around. And at the time, he had this fascination with fans, and he would just sit there and watch fans turning around, and he just stood there, just watching the big rotor on the helicopter just spinning around, and then all of a sudden it's sort of like, oh, open space, and he was gone. He was running all over the place, climbing up on the seat that they had around the edge of the raised gardens of the pond that they had there, and he would go running along the seats and all of that sort of thing. And of course, grandma's chasing him, keeping him, trying to keep up with him. It was a lot of fun, but to see the world through the eyes of an innocent child is an incredible experience. And I think one of the joys of being a grandparent is that you get to experience things all over again. That's different from a parent's perspective. Because the cool part about being a grandparent is a little more freedom than if they were your own kid. It's a whole new different level of awareness. But I have really missed my time with my grandkids this year, not being able to be with them and spend time with them, interact with them, play with them, um, hear them read or tell them stories, that sort of stuff. So I've really missed that. So I'm hoping in 2021 to get a little more time with them to be able to do that sort of stuff. So anyway, what are your wins for today? What are your wins for the week? Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling winning Wednesday. I'm off to go walk a puppy who it's gone back to bed. So I'm going to go see how quickly I can get ready before she realizes what I'm doing and comes out. That's going to be the fun part. But have a super fantastic sparkling day. Oh, excuse me. And we will catch you guys later today. Hek on